Good afternoon. Welcome. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nan Akua. Reasonably intelligent people, and I use that word loosely, have got their knickers in a twist because of this.
A woman can have a penis.
Nick, I'm not... I don't think we can conduct this debate with...
Sorry, have I offended you in some way?
No, it's just... I just...
Is it transphobic to say only women have a cervix?
Look, is it transphobic? Look...
Is it transphobic to say only women have a cervix, David?
I don't know if it's transphobic, but it's not accurate, Nick. I mean, obviously, it's probably the case that only that trans women don't have ovaries, but a cervix, I understand, is something that you can have following various procedures and hormone treatment and all the rest of it.
I think we need to manage this and think about it and debate it with a bit more maturity and a bit more compassion.
Well, that's what Sir Keir Starmer once said to me, and he never did answer the question, can a woman have a penis?
Well, I've just answered that question.
They can.
Listen, I've made it really clear that if people, the vast majority of people will have the same gender as their biological sex, but a small number won't.
So a woman can have a penis?
Well, quite clearly.
Right. So let me put it straight. A man can never become a woman, and a woman can never become a man. Eventually, a Supreme Court judge confirmed this to be the case in a ruling that protected biological sex.
The unanimous decision of this court is that the terms woman and sex in the Equality Act 2010 refer to a biological woman and biological sex. But we counsel against reading this judgment as a triumph of one or more groups in our society at the expense of another. It is not.
Now, you'd think that would draw a line under it, but today people are having to protest in cities across the country to ensure that the ruling is upheld.
Straight after the ruling, Keir Starmer said the government supports it, everyone needs to get on with it. And now we've been waiting 7 months for guidance from the Equality and Human Rights Commission. It's been completed, it's with the Minister. She needs to lay it before Parliament, and we don't know why they're delaying. Everyone needs to understand the law, and at the moment they're saying there is no guidance.
But unfortunately, some people are not happy.
The reality of the situation is that trans women, not men, trans women and other trans people are not predators. The statistics show us over and over again that trans women are not predators.
But isn't it 2/3 of trans women in prison have been convicted of at least one sex offence? What do you say to that?
That statistic is misleading. That is sexual crimes. A lot of that is things like sex work. It is not sex predators.
Gender, which I equate to biological sex, is a biological reality. And there are obvious practical reasons why one cannot and should not claim to be the other. Take sport. Leah Thomas, the male swimmer who decided he was a woman. Leah then went on to smash all the female records despite being male. How can that be fair to the female athletes who have trained all their lives to compete in the sport? Men have, just to name but a few, larger lung and heart capacities, more muscle mass, broader shoulders, longer torsos and greater bone density, which means that they have a biological advantage. Take medicine. We've found ourselves in the ludicrous position where medical healthcare experts like doctors and nurses having to ask a biological male whether he's pregnant, despite knowing that right now this is a medical impossibility. And take women's safety, the areas where women are at our most vulnerable because we are the physically weaker sex, like, say, in changing rooms, toilets and in prisons. Who can forget double rapist Isla Bryson put in a woman's prison? Those spaces are separate to protect us from biological males, irrespective of whether they are trans or not. And now 9 trans women, so biological males, one of whom, called the suffragettes white supremacists, has been declared a Women of the Year by Glamour magazine. But is this just telling girls that men are better than women? In my view, trans women and men should be called trans people. a gender-neutral term which avoids offence, seeing as we're all expected to adopt gender neutrality. That way, men cannot be categorised as women and vice versa. Biological sex is reality, and whilst it is polite to respect each other, I'm not prepared to reinforce somebody else's delusion. A man can never become a biological female. It has never been done before, and until someone proves me wrong, I'm sticking with that. But before we get stuck into the debate, here's what else is coming up today. In the Great British Debate, I'm asking, should a trans woman be called a trans person instead? And also the same for trans men. This comes on a day when women's rights campaigners and trans rights activists have taken to the streets. Then in the Great British Debate I'm asking, was it right to clear Just Stop Oil activists of criminal damage? 3 people were charged after orange powder was thrown over Stonehenge, but they were found not guilty yesterday after citing the European Convention of Human Rights. And with border force officials set to strike later this month, I'll ask a security expert whether they should be allowed to take industrial action at all, or whether, like the police, they should be banned from doing that. All of that on the way. As ever, send me your thoughts, post your comments, gbnews.com/your say. Well, to react to my niggle, I'm joined by the human rights campaigner, Peter Tatchell. Peter, welcome. Now, Peter, can you see my point on this? That, a biological male, they can say they're trans women, but how about we call them trans people? Therefore, there's no categorisation as to women or man, but then they're a trans person, which is gender neutral and should keep everyone happy. But there's no woman classification.
Well, you're absolutely right. Biological sex and gender identity are 2 different things. They're not the same. But I would argue that trans people have a right to be different and a right to dignity and respect. Now, when you try and conflate the 2, that's where the problems arise.
Try and conflate gender with sex?
That's
not a conflation.
No, some people do, and I disagree with that. There is a difference. There is a fundamental difference between a woman and a trans woman. They are different, but they're both equally valid.
Well, they're equally valid, but one's a man, one's a woman. That's the difference.
Well, the whole hue and cry against trans people has been based on the scaremongering tactic that, in particular, trans women are a threat to other women. And that is factually not true. The number of incidents where trans women have behaved badly in public toilets or gyms, etc., is absolutely tiny and does not justify a legislative sledgehammer.
Okay.
Can I just give you an example?
No, go on then.
I have several elderly trans friends, trans women, in their 70s and 80s, who've been using women's toilets for 50 or more years. They've never caused a problem. No woman has objected to their presence. They've behaved themselves with deportment, kindness, and dignity towards other women there. Now, I'm saying you can't generalise. It's wrong to generalise about trans people on the basis of the bad behaviour of a tiny minority.
OK, so I'm not saying that we're generalising on the basis of a tiny minority. Yeah. What I'm saying is a trans woman is a male, and those separate spaces are separate for specific reasons. So men are stronger than women.
Not all men.
No.
I've got some female friends who are much stronger than me.
OK, but
I'm a bit of a lightweight.
But we have to look at the majority of men. And so and the way men are physically and biologically.
But why not have individual assessment?
Let me just... So, no, we can't individually assess each person to see whether they're stronger than a woman, to see whether they can enter the female toilets or not. That's not the point. The point is that there are some bad people about, and there are men who might pretend to be women. Let's take Isla Bryson, for example. Yeah. Now, that person was clearly not a trans woman by the genuine idea of a trans woman. So there are people who take advantage. Now, why should women be at the mercy of a potential risk factor when that doesn't need to exist? We don't want to risk that. Why should we be exposed to the risk that some people will be bad actors? And also, actually, it's quite intimidating having a trans woman sometimes in the toilets. That is true, because they're a lot bigger, they're a lot stronger. We know that.
No, they're not all bigger and stronger. I've got trans friends who are more petite than you. More petite than you.
But let's be honest, you can be petite but still more physically stronger, and men are designed to be physically stronger than women. That is a biological reality for the majority of men, OK? And so we have to work it on the majority, not a small minority, which means, therefore, that women should never be put at risk in that way. By men.
Yeah, but
not by whether it's a trans woman or a man, just by men.
You could use the same argument against the Muslim community, saying that a tiny minority of Muslims are terrorists, and therefore the whole Muslim community is a potential threat, and they should all face restrictions. That would be monstrous. But you're making the same argument about trans people.
Yeah, but it's not.
I just want to finish.
No. It's not. No. It's not relatable because it is a reality, and we know this. That single-sex spaces are there for a reason, to protect women.
Yeah.
We don't need to worry about being protected against Muslims, because Muslims are all different. They're all different people with different mindsets. But a man is biologically created in a way, in general, to be stronger than a woman. That is why the spaces are separate. There is a reason, an actual tangible reason.
Yeah. But every man is not a potential rapist.
Yes, but we cannot be measuring on every man. We just know that most men are stronger than women.
Can I give you an example? A friend of mine works in a women's centre in the north of England. 7 years ago, by the agreement of both the staff and the women users, they have admitted trans women into that women's centre. There's never been a problem, never complaints, nothing. It's worked perfectly well. And the women have said, a lot of the women have said, yeah, they're different from trans people. Trans women are different, but they also suffer from misogyny, discrimination, sexual assault, domestic violence. And therefore, there's the common interest of all women working together to support each other.
Yeah, but women and men are different in terms of the biological reality. And therefore, to protect women from all men, not that all men are predators, because that's not the point, is it? It's to protect them from a minority of people who might take advantage of that. Let's be honest, the majority of murders is over 90% of them are committed men against women, OK? It's not the other way around. So those spaces are separate, not because all men are murderers, but because women need protection. And as a woman, I'll be honest, I don't feel that comfortable with men in a female-only space. And that's not, I don't care whether you're trans or anything. As a woman, knowing I'm the weaker physical sex, I don't want that. And a lot of women are saying that. And it's not because we don't like trans people, it's because we're women.
Yeah, I totally agree that any man, whether it be a biological man or a trans woman who has a history of sexual or physical violence, should be absolutely excluded from women's only spaces.
We haven't got time to look through people's history before they enter the space. And if we get it wrong and they enter the space and they're not that nice, then we're in trouble. Women, listen, women need to be protected in sport. There should be no reason why trans women should be against women. In swimming, do you think it's correct that Isla Bryson was swimming against women? Is that
Leah
fair?
Thomas, you mean?
Leah Thomas, sorry. Yeah, Isla Bryson, I don't know whether he can swim or not.
Look, you raise valid concerns.
Absolutely.
I'm totally with the feminist argument that women must be protected.
Absolutely.
But I just don't think generalisation is the way to go. As I said, so few trans women have done bad things.
Well, in jail,
to penalise the whole community is just so wrong. It's not the British way.
It's not
our tolerant tradition.
You're not penalising somebody by withholding the biological reality and protecting women in women-only spaces. Why you're protecting women as a biological group, women and men, and we know that there are, in my view, there are two sexes. There aren't any others, and that is the reason why the spaces are separate. That's the only reason.
Yeah.
Quickly, Peter. Then I've got to go. Sadly, we could talk about this for ages, but you are wrong.
There are unintended consequences. So the Equality and Human Rights Commission, in its interim guidance, suggested that trans people would be banned from all toilets because they said, for example, they said that the idea of a masculine trans man using a woman's toilet would cause offence and distress and anxiety to women, and therefore they should not be allowed to use a men's toilet or not allowed to use a women's toilet. That means they have no access to any public toilet.
There's usually a third toilet.
No, there's not. Not in most places.
In most places there is.
I know you've got to hear GB News, but
by law, if you're in a public space, you do have to have a disabled toilet. You can't just not have that. So there is a law, that and it's when things have been built as well. So it's within building law that you have to have that. So you can use the third space.
The other problem is...
the gender-neutral space.
Under this proposal...
What's the problem with this?
The problem is that all female-looking people will face the possibility of challenge and having to produce birth certificates, even non-trans women.
You don't need to produce a birth certificate, just respect the fact that women-only spaces are for women.
No, to enforce this rule, you would have to police it. Are you going to have police
No, you wouldn't police it.
On every
we don't need
toilet?
to police it, but trans people will be respectful of the fact that women's only spaces are that way.
Well,
as our
I've got biological women who do not look sufficiently feminine, and they are being challenged and abused when they go to the women's toilet.
Well, you're saying that, but none of them are here to say that. It's just you. All right, Peter, I've got to go. Thank you very much, Peter Tatchell. Those are his thoughts. What are yours? This is GB News.